for June 23rd, 2026 to order. I'd also like to acknowledge we have a scout with us tonight. Say your name and what badge you're working on. You can stand up.
So that I'm here to listen for citizenship of the nation.
No.
Oh, yeah, community citizenship to the community.
Okay, great. Okay, good luck with your badge. So item 3 is public comment. Has anyone completed a speaker form to speak?
No, Mayor, not.
Okay, well, public comment is closed. Next item is for workshop. We have 2 presentations scheduled for tonight's workshop. Item A, TE Harmon Center feasibility study, review of and discussion on the TE Harmon Center feasibility study final report. And we have Kimberly Terrell, Director of Park Recreation.
Good afternoon. So we're here tonight to present this feasibility study for you. I want to, first, before we go into this, I want to talk about what a feasibility study is and what it isn't, just to set the stage for this, because this isn't really a term that we've been using too often. So the study will look at what our needs are, what the wants are of the community. We're looking at, site locations, options, potential adjacencies, really exploring things. This is really an exploratory document. So what this isn't is this isn't authorization to move to the next step. This isn't anything to do with potential funding. Any of those decisions will need to be made by council at a future date. So none of those things are presented in this study. So why are we here? Y'all probably heard us talk about this a bunch of times at the senior center. It's really exploding in popularity, and we're blessed to have all of our seniors with us. We have tremendous volunteers, we have tremendous staff, and it's really a place that a lot of our folks call home. So we've shown significant growth in both memberships and program attendance. Our program participation has doubled within the past 5 years. And a lot of that is just us adapting to the site and looking at different ways to use the site by changing around the schedules, by really trying to maximize the programs that we have. Where we have yoga that's always at the max, well, let's get another yoga class. So working with our staff and our volunteers, we're able to max the center out. But the increased demand has led to some of those concerns from our seniors. It really got us to this place, and like our popular programs have wait lists, and folks are having to wait in lines to register at the beginning of the month. And so there's been some frustration from our seniors, which has led to this project. Some of our.
Should I take the question at the end, or should we keep asking?
What do you prefer?
I'm fine if you have a question.
I just wanted to ask, but you already said membership. I was going to ask what is the membership.
So this is our membership data, and I will say that we're tracking this from FY22, and some of the reasons that we're doing that is we didn't even know if we were going to do this study, because if y'all recall, in 2020 there was an event, and the senior center was closed for a year, and so we got the funding shortly after that to do this study. But we weren't getting, once the senior center opened again, we just weren't getting the folks back again. And so the problem that we had in 2018 that led us to this study, we're like, well, we don't have that problem anymore. So we're still going to do this study. So you'll see in some other slides that kind of talk about that time frame, that's what's really kind of a lot of this delay is really only until FY23 did we get to those pre-COVID numbers where we did have that capacity issue. So we got very, very excited. We had a little mini celebration when we got back to our pre-COVID numbers, and folks were coming back out again and participating in classes. So we have memberships. So those are the number of people that have memberships. And then we also have our membership, our check-ins. So those are how many times folks are coming to classes or coming to hang out with us. So we have both a growth in memberships and also a growth in check-ins. And you'll see from the numbers, so the FY26 numbers we're just in June. So we're middle of the year. So already our membership data, we've sold more memberships than in the middle of the year than we did last year, the whole year. So we're excited there. And also our membership check-ins, that's our program check-ins, et cetera, are tied just about for the whole year of FY24. So we're still in an upward trajectory, and we're very, very proud to be able to offer these programs to our seniors.
Kimberly, Mayor,
Yes, please.
and if you're going to get to this, tell me to shut up and I'll shut up. But these numbers for 2026 also reflect the increase in fees. So we should see a substantial change in revenue.
Correct. So as y'all recall, when we were going through the budget discussion last year, we essentially doubled the fees. They were $12.75, I think, a year, and we doubled them to about $25. And that happened January 1. So this growth has happened since then. And we have heard from some of our folks that, you know, if you ask somebody if you want their fees to go up, they're going to tell you no. But a lot of that is really, you know, in order to be able to maintain these programs for our folks, we need to supplement some of that revenue.
So the people who signed up on December 31st and aren't reflected, it had to have been January 2nd and later for them to have signed.
It's correct, yes. So as I said, so our existing conditions is our facility space is limited. A lot of times when you go into the center, it doesn't feel like that if y'all have been in there, because it's very much like a high school campus that you'll see the people when they're out of the classes and during that class change. So sometimes when you'll drop in and be like, I heard this place was busy, but it doesn't look that busy. But that's where you see all the folks is when they're coming out of their classes. And we have a limited kind of hangout space for folks playing pool, et cetera. And you'll see them there. A lot of those folks that come in to play pool and to hang out, they're there all day. This is their second home, right? So we do have limited space, so that prevents us expanding our programs anymore. We have tried to extend programs to other buildings, and we've had limited success with that. That's because they consider the T. Harmon Center their home. They want to be. That's where they want to be. They don't want to operate their program in one of our other buildings. They want to make sure that they have it at the center because they love it so much. The Sugar Land has a high percentage of folks that are 65 and over. We are in a list of these cities here, we're actually tied for first. And this data was from our 2018 master plan. I will say that now our 65 plus population is about 19%. So it has grown a little bit from this chart. And then I just wanted to show you kind of in comparison, this is the FY25 T. Harmon Center age group breakdown, just so you can kind of see like what age of folks are coming kind of on average, because I will say that, I'm eligible for the senior center. Folks that are 50 and up are eligible for the senior center, but a small percentage of our folks are 50 to 59 or 90 to 100, right? The majority of our folks are in that 70 to 79 or 60 to 69 age range. So we generally use the 65 plus data for kind of our benchmarking. Obviously there's some wiggle room there, but we do allow, we do accommodate folks 50 and up. And just a little bit of the history about our senior programs. We started senior programming in 1994 in one room that was in that building that's not there anymore off of Matledge Way, and expanded in 97 and then in 2007 and more recently in 2012 to accommodate the growing population. And it feels like every time we've grown it, it's filled up almost instantly, right? So we did a little exercise to kind of track that ratio. And the correlation between that data is that sort of every time we got to kind of 2 to 1, like two people per 65 to 1 square foot, that was when we kind of felt that, that kind of push there. So that's sort of kind of, some of the incidental data that we looked at, and our ratio is above that right now. It's about 2.4 to 1. And then some additional data, y'all met with the Zen City folks, right? So y'all know that we have a continuous survey. This is just some of the survey data from the first quarter of the survey. We have a question on there about what improvements do you want to see in parks, and developing indoor facilities is our number 1 for this quarter. It shifts right from quarter to quarter, but this quarter it's number 1. And then the data indicated that senior programming is something that folks are talking about. And the open responses, while there are only 15, there is a higher ratio of what could the city improve responses than what the city does well responses related to seniors. And then specifically folks were asking for more programming and more access to recreation facilities.
Councilmember?
You talk about the demographics and the historical demographics, our needs, but do we have any future demographics looking at how we may lose senior? Are we going to grow our senior demographics? Or are we looking at maybe a cyclical part where we don't have as many seniors coming up? Do we have that information?
So I've looked at a significant amount of data because my crystal ball said that somebody on council would ask a question like this, right? Like, what does our future look like as far as our seniors? I could not get a good answer. I asked AI, and AI gave me an answer, which, AI is saying, well, of course it's expanding. But if you look at our median age, which is approximately like 43 is our median age, right? So, if our median age shifts up to 50, they're eligible to go to the senior center.
It's gonna grow.
Yes, I've I don't have a good concrete number. Like I'm asking it, like, what's the senior population gonna be in 2050? And it's like, yeah, we really, we can't project that well, but.
Stuart?
Kimberly, so we increased the dues a lot for non-residents. What is the ratio of residents versus non-residents? And what if we just focused on our residents and not so much on our non-residents? Would we still have capacity problem?
So we, part of our 2018 Parks Rec and Open Space Master Plan raised that as a question and a concern. And shortly after that, we went through a pretty significant cost exercise because it was, at the time, I think residents were about $10 and non-residents were only $65. We raised it significantly to, I think it was about $165. But at the same time, we annexed Greatwood and New Territory, which we had a lot of folks that were there. So kind of things balanced out. I think the last time I looked, I think our non-residents are at about 5%. So that wasn't really an issue that we were really is a cause for concern.
Okay, all right, so you're saying that of these numbers, only 5% are non-Sugarland residents?
That's the last time I looked at it, that's the number that I have. I haven't looked at it here recently, but it was a very low percentage. It used to be a much higher amount, as you can imagine, with the lower fees. But again, we annexed a lot of the folks that were non-residents that were visiting us. So a lot of our non-residents overnight became residents.
Thank you.
So as I said, this was recommended in the 2018 Parks Master Plan. We began scoping and public input internally in 2021, and we held some open houses in January of 2022. I see that, the pictures, we're still wearing masks and those sorts of things, right? So we still had the threat of COVID and folks coming out in 2021. And then our open house in 2022. In 2023, so we were getting, as we saw in 2023, our numbers were getting back up. So we were confident that we were going to have the overcrowding problems again. So we enlisted the help of BRW architects through our normal RFQ process with them, and they've worked on several senior centers in the area, and so they were highly qualified to work with us on senior centers. When we enlisted our work with them, we came up with a vision. And the vision is what you can imagine. We want to provide a center that promotes the health and the well-being of our seniors, that responds to the needs and interests of our diverse group, addresses social and physical needs of our aging residents, and is an adaptable space and accommodates a variety of functions and needs. So these are the project vision that we put forth to our consultant, and we will present to you tonight 3 concepts that we have developed through that vision that we think represent this vision. And I am going to let Emily from BRW Architects come up and present that to you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Like Kimberly said, hi, my name is Emily. I'm with BRW Architects. Worked on a couple of senior centers in the Houston area. We've been working with the city of Sugar Land now for 3 years. And I want to take a minute to thank the amazing staff. Funling and William are here too. It's been a lot of work on them as well. They've provided a lot of amazing input, as has many of the citizens, through a lot of the process here that you can see what we started with. So the city did an open house. They also did a survey. We then came in and did a facility analysis of the current facility. We did several site analysis of multiple different site options. We played what we like to call the money game. The money game was we gave any senior who wanted to participate a budget, so to speak, where they had to buy certain spaces. Not every space was worth the same amount. Everything had a different cost in proportion to what it costs to create that space. And we did this because it really helps us prioritize what spaces are really wanted and needed, as opposed to if you give them, what spaces do you want? They're going to say they want everything, so this helps us see, okay, what's actually the priority when we really have to choose. It's a very,
Just a quick question. The survey, did it go out to all the population or just senior citizens?
All the population.
Okay.
and then through that, we gathered that data, and that has really helped us to inform the programming of the spaces, what spaces we would include, what spaces were most important. what spaces need to be larger to accommodate what type of classes. We then went through some adjacency exercises with the staff. Really learned how the staff functions, how the facility functions, what spaces need to be next to each other, what spaces need to be separate because of noise, because of they like to hang out there all day. They kind of want their own space, like the billiard area Kimberly mentioned. And then we went through an aesthetic exercise where we talked about what did we want this building to potentially look like? Again, like Kimberly said, this is a feasibility study, so this is all, you know, this is hypothetical, this is what could it be, but it's a visual aid to see what is possible, what the potential is. And we talked about floor plans and site plans, several different iterations on those, different iterations on 3D renderings. We went back to the senior center at the T. Harmon Center and did an open house update. I think a couple of you were there for that. And updated the seniors on the progress. And now we're here today with the final report and 3 scenarios. So we went through a lot of different, this is to show the roadmap of the project and to show that we went through a lot of different phases, a lot of different iterations to get us here today. And so what I'm gonna do, if you look through, if you want to get more into the detail of all of those iterations, all of that kind of data that we gathered, that's in your report booklet. But I'm gonna keep it kind of high level today for the interest of time.
Okay.
So we're gonna go to the scenarios. But as you go through your booklet, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But yes, that is chock full of a bunch of that data that I just discussed. But here we are, scenario A. This is an addition and renovation of the existing center. So if you're looking at the site plan here, this gray square on the top, that is the current facility. And then kind of the striped squares, there's the roof line showing of the addition. So it'd be a new addition of 10,800 square feet, renovating the existing 10,700 square feet for a total of about 21,000 square feet. And our program recommended occupancy for that would be 765 people. That's essentially doubling what you have now. This would include 2 multi-purpose rooms, 3 classrooms, a large gathering space and game room, an exercise room, a library, and lots of storage, which is very, very important in a senior center. Some values this would bring to the community. It would meet most of the current needs and wants. It would improve recreational opportunities for seniors. It would reduce the waiting lines that Kimberly talked about and waiting times for the popular classes, as you could accommodate more in each class. And you could have classes going on simultaneously while having those 2 multi-purpose rooms. It would provide more spaces for safety and comfort for the seniors. We specialize in design for the aging population. So we would incorporate a lot of the safety features into this design, barrier-free entry, automatic doors, no curbs to get into the building, increased hallway sizes, increased restroom sizes and grab bar locations, fall prevention measures, increased contrast with the finishes to help with those with vision impairments, tell the difference between the floor, the wall, the door, etc. Special care for visitors with wheelchairs, less need to move classes to non-designated spaces and kind of having to fit a class in a space that doesn't make sense. Ability to host more programming and events, and it could also potentially be a revenue generator with potential rent out space too after hours. So the pros and the cons, we're gonna show those again in a little bit, but just for y'all's reference right now, the pros of this scenario would be reusing the existing structure. This is the least costly of the 3 options. This does some much needed upgrades to the current facility. This renovation would take care of those needed upgrades, such as the HVAC, some of those safety things we talked about, giving it a kind of a finish upgrade as well. And it meets many of the current needs that we identified. The cons for it would, and the biggest con when we presented this to the seniors, was that this would mean the facility would have to be closed for construction. And that was a big no-no. They did not like that. Not being possible or feasible to operate while this was under construction, and it also wouldn't be safe. So programming would have to be relocated. Another con is, while it meets many of the needs and wants currently, it doesn't meet all of them. It is site specific. So if in the future it was decided we like this option, but we can't do it on this side, we want to do it somewhere else. This isn't really one that you can pause and play somewhere else. And then it's a less efficient layout of space as to a completely new build because we're adapting spaces as opposed to ground up, kind of putting things exactly where you would want them.
How long would it need to be closed?
I'm sorry,
How long would it need to be closed?
12 to 18 months for construction, I would estimate.
It's a long time. Any capacity at IPRC to hold any classes in?
Already full.
Yeah, it's already full.
We could rent some space at Lifetime. Yes, Sanjay?
So what is the current maximum capacity of the current building?
It is about half that. Kimberly can,
Yeah, it's about 300 to 350.
And do we have a data? What has been the highest attendance on a given day? Like
I do not,
200 to 50, something like that?
yeah, I don't have that data for you, but we can.
That'll be good information to bring back. Yeah, people come and go. Some people might be coming for a class for an hour and they leave. Then there's the pool players who are there, hang out.
Because I was looking at the total visits divided by the average, it's something like 200 per day total visits. That would mean at a given time, 100 to 150 people in the building.
Well, I said they're spread out throughout the day between 8 and 5. Somebody's just there for an hour, somebody else is there for a different hour. So
likely class specific too.
it's class specific, yeah.
If a larger space could hold a larger class, you probably get more visitors. So quick look at the floor plan. This is also in your handout if you want to get a closer look. But we've got 2 large multi-purpose rooms, a dedicated game room kind of in the back there for noise control, a large entry space and gathering space for people to wait for their class, for them to socialize and kind of congregate. It's also kind of that arrival moment that kind of makes you feel like you're coming home and brings kind of pride to this space. That was a big want, was to kind of a sense of place and purpose with this. A dedicated exercise room, a library, a classroom or a couple classrooms, and a cafe and a kitchen.
So there wouldn't be the opportunity to build a new space and then relocate people into the new space and essentially close off the old space for remodeling after the new space has been built out?
Well, so if you look at it here, this the lighter gray indicates the existing walls. The darker gray indicates the what would be new. So a lot of it'd be, we're gonna have to tear down one exterior wall or cut a hole in it at least. We're also gonna be adding on to some of the existing, like bumping out the exercise room and bumping out the game room. So there would be a lot going on in the existing facility during construction, and just the hazards and the dust and the noise of construction. It's not something we would recommend. And so this is a look at what the exterior could look like. This is, again, for the purpose of the feasibility study, it's meant to kind of generate ideas and learn the potential of what a space is. But this is based off of the aesthetic talks that we had with the staff, as well as kind of taking some details and some aesthetic notes from your partner on site there, the rec center. I'm forgetting the
IRC.
Okay, the IRC. Yes, the rec center there. So that's where the columns and the wood beams come from. In here, the 1-story area to the right of the drop off, that is the existing facility. So that would be recladded, reskinned, and a parapet structure built up on it to make that roof a little bit higher and then hide any mechanical equipment or anything like that. It is a 1-story on the other side too. It's just a vaulted ceiling to have some more natural light in there. Any questions on scenario A? This is the interior arrival area that we were talking about. So another big discussion point when we were talking aesthetics was wanting to have a youthful, vibrant light feel to the space, but also something that was kind of timeless. Wouldn't need to be renovated anytime soon, wouldn't feel dated anytime soon. So we went with a very clean color palette, but with a lot of natural light and a lot of nice detail that kind of elevates the space. It brought up the ceiling height to give you that sense of arrival and that sense of importance. Scenario B. So this is a ground up construction, also on the same site. And it is, if you can see the existing Tia Harmon Centers there in the middle, this is that green space to the north. However, since this is a ground up construction, this is something that could work on a multitude of different sites if it needed to be. It's about 1,900 or 19,800 square feet. Program occupancy is about the same. It's slightly smaller in square footage than the other space. But we were able to prioritize giving the rooms that were more preferred, more square footage. So it's a little bit more efficient use of this, if that makes sense. So 2 large multi-purpose rooms, they're larger than the other scenario. Only 1 classroom, as that was kind of lower on the priority list. Larger gathering space, larger game room, larger exercise room, larger library, and increased storage to the other option.
This option, will you still have the TE Harmon Center in effect, and then this be a sort of the annex, an additional TE Harmon Center, or would the TE Harmon Center be not the original one not be used anymore?
So that's a decision point that we're gonna have to make. In these scenarios, we're really just showing this so you can kind of see where that's located, knowing that it will need to be there during construction. We don't have a recommendation on the future use of that space. It could be continuing to be used for senior programming. It depends on kind of when we're doing this. We've spoken to facilities, and they indicate that the building is still in good shape to be able to do that. But one of the considerations that we need to make is if we are continuing to leave this open for programming, we're going to need to take a really good look at the parking availability to make sure that whatever we're programming that building for, that we can still accommodate the people that we need to in that parking. So it really depends on that use. And it could be that the city decides that that building is more useful in some other way, shape, or form or capacity, but that's not included in this particular project, but it is something that we looked at and it should be considered for the future.
So in this scenario, we have, sorry, I already went over that. Some community values this would bring, positive community reputation, new and more space and amenity for seniors, enhanced the suburban community in the area. Community integration, new event venue that could generate revenue from rentals potentially, and that could be set up, as through a separate door. We could have areas sectioned off. Leaves the existing untouched, so it's not closed for construction and can be repurposed to another use if needed by the city. Could be removed for parking. Could be used for additional senior programming, whatever is needed, whatever y'all decide on that. So some of the pros, it's a more efficient use of this space. It could remain open during construction. It's of the 3 options, it's the middle cost. And it meets most of the needs, a few more than I would say the previous one. But the only con would be that it doesn't meet every need or want right now. And it doesn't really, it kind of meets current needs with a little bit of room for future, but not much room for future, as opposed to the next scenario you'll see, which has a lot more room for future growth. So this is the floor plan. As you can see, larger multi-purpose rooms, larger game room, larger exercise room, larger gathering space and cafe space, and larger central restrooms, and a little bit more storage as well. And so this is what the exterior could look like. Again, a lot of similar elements to the rec center there on site. Just a little bit different style. We're in that particular location, we are up against a couple of easements, so the site constrains it a little bit, but this one's able to fit pretty neatly in between there. Backwards there. And then that's what that interior gathering space for this option could look like. In all these scenarios, we're showing a gathering space with a fireplace, just kind of brings that homey feel. Like Kimberly said, this is their second home. So kind of bringing that into this space, making it feel very cozy. And then scenario C. So this is a new build in the same location. This one is much larger though, because it's actually 2 stories. And so it's 30,000 square feet, program occupancy of 980. It has two large multi-purpose room, a double height gathering entrance space, so a very grand entrance. Classroom, three large game rooms, one large game room, large exercise room, a larger library, more storage, an indoor walking trail, which is the only one that has that. That was a request. There's exterior walking trails all around the site. But right now, at this time in Texas, no one's gonna want to walk outside. So that is a very popular amenity we've seen at senior centers, as having that capability. And then it's designed for futures needs, so there's room to grow into this one, as opposed to being at capacity day one when you open, which is unfortunately the story for most senior centers. Budget is always, of course, a concern, but everyone that I've worked on, day one, they're past capacity, and they always say, we wish we would have built a little bit more for the future. Sorry, lost my spot. So this one also would boost the community reputation and belonging, emphasize future-oriented building solution, prioritize active aging that emphasizes health, social connection, and enrichment, and stronger social equity, ensure privacy and dignity, strengthen the integration connection by allowing more families and community partners. And it can be used as a venue for large events, which would bring in more revenue for rentals. So the pros of this would be, again, open during the TE Harmon Center can stay open during the construction. It meets all the identified needs from the surveys and from the money game that we played. This is also adaptable to multiple sites, and it is designed for future needs.
Yeah, a question, please. So do any of these three scenarios, are they designed or will they be designed for additions in the future? Or to be phased into the eventual capacity that these three build outs show?
They certainly can be designed that way. And depending on the site, both of these scenario B and C are at the max lines. We should go there. So we're on all sides, we have easements on every side. So that's why we had to go vertical with this one. If we could get some easements relocated, or if it was on a different site, it could definitely be designed to expand upon. It also, as you mentioned, it could be designed to be phased as well.
Thank you.
Now, is there an elevator to get to the upstairs?
Yes, there's an elevator. There's one elevator right now. A recommendation was to potentially add a second once we get into construction documents. If this does move forward, that would certainly be something we would consider, weigh the pros and cons of that. But yes, one elevator. It's number 22 right now. There's the elevator there.
Okay. Yeah, and I know you mentioned that indoor walking trail. A lot of seniors like to go to the First Colony Mall and walk inside there. They really enjoy, using that as like their indoor walking trail.
Yeah, so that would be on the second floor there, the atrium. They'd have that walking path around there. So we have a couple chairs along the way, rest if they need to. And then this one has the two large multi-purpose rooms on the first floor, large gathering space, larger exercise room, as one classroom on the first floor, and a large library that would have room for maybe technology space as well. Restrooms on the first floor, as well as a kitchen on the first floor. And then on the second floor, we have additional restrooms. The large game room is up there, and then two additional classrooms up there, as well as kind of a coffee bar, snack bar thing. And then that's what this exterior could look like. Again, taking notes from the extras we played with the staff, as well as the elements. So really taking into the character of the site. And then this is what the interior could look like. That's in that open atrium space with the walking trail around. Visibility is really important in a senior center in case somebody were to fall and need help. So that's kind of why we left this space open. That way, if someone's on the second floor and they falls, maybe a staff member on the first floor would be able to see that and be able to provide assistance. We do have a grand staircase that goes around the fireplace, which in a senior center, you might say, maybe you need to prioritize the elevators a little bit more, but since it's 50 and up, and there are a lot of active seniors that use this space, we still wanted to encourage, take the stairs if you can, And it's a nice focal point around the front. And then these next couple of images, these are not specific to any one scenario. These are just additional ideas of what some of the interior spaces could look like. So this is an idea of what the multi-purpose room could look like. Here's what the game room could look like. Lots of natural light, but we would add, roller shades and then lots of acoustical treatment so that we don't hear the billiards across the hall from them. And then this is what the cafe could look like. That's a very popular space in the current T. Harmon Center. So coffee bar, additional tables to sit and socialize, some areas for news and flyer posting. And this is what one of the classrooms could look like. They use this space for art and crafts, as well as language classes, and different smaller classes.
Question? Suzanne?
Do we have any idea what the capacity we need to host the Christmas event here? I mean, would this work for that as far as catering and having such a large event like that here? I know we did it last year. It was cramped, but it was nice. Would this work for that?
That's not something that we've looked at. It's the space is doubled, but how big is the biggest space compared to our biggest space?
I 4,400 square feet, it's quite a bit larger.
One room.
That would be that one room, yeah.
Right, so we could expand it from what we're currently doing. I don't know off the top of my head the maximum.
And I'm just trying to say, if we're gonna do something like this, we could use this space for that type of event and it would save us in the long run. But we just need to have the space for it.
How many people go to the Christmas?
That's a Kimberly question. We could get a lot of people.
In the past, when we've held the gala, I mean, it's 500, it's.
Jim?
Maybe you're gonna get to this, but what is, you mentioned something about time frame for construction on option A, but what would the construction time frame be for B and C?
I would think B, being a one-story, being a little bit smaller, would be about 12 months. C, being a two-story, a little bit bigger, would be probably 15 to 18. I think the renovation is probably gonna be the longest, just because renovations tend to be a little bit trickier.
Option C, the existing facility would remain open and used.
What's the largest square footage in scenario B in one room?
42.
So it's very close to the biggest room in scenario, so just 100 difference, so very, very similar. Okay.
Similar, yeah.
And then we have a secondary 2,000 square foot multi-purpose room too, which is also very large. Scenario C is 2,400 square feet is the secondary space, so also very large there. Alright, and then I think here, so a dedicated exercise room. I know we have some exercise equipment over at the rec center, but this would be for senior specific designed exercise equipment that's safer, more ergonomic, designed for senior use, as well as privacy. Some seniors don't want to work out in front of their non-peers, so to say.
Exactly. They don't want to work out in front of people. That's true.
Don't want to show them up. And then also just safety, having increased fall prevention, having increased sight lines to the front desk so that if somebody were to fall or need assistance, a staff member would see that. And then we also explored some additional site amenities. A big request when we did one of the money games was a pool. So we broke that off into a separate facility so that it could be included or excluded depending on the need at the time, but also for functionality. Chlorine pools tend to permeate through an entire building if they're attached to it. So having it as a separate building would preserve the integrity of the other space. As well as it could be done a little bit more affordably as like a pre-engineered model building or something like that is kind of the option we're showing here. Attached to that is also a pavilion. We've also included on the site, two pickleball courts. That was another request. And those are the prices for all of that site amenities in today, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, dollars.
So instead of a chlorine disinfection, can you use like the salt water? Because I've seen that at some pools.
Yes, you can. It's also corrosive. So it's just recommended to, if you can have it in a separate building,
Still separate.
it just preserves the other building a little bit more. And so the maintenance on this building is contained as opposed to something that would spread. And so then here's a snapshot of all of those scenarios side by side, the pros and the cons, as well as the cost projections for each in today's dollars, 5 years from now, and then 10 years from now, with our estimate for inflation.
One question,
Sanjay?
do you need additional people to operate the expanded building?
Yes, sir. And we had that same question as well. So you'll see, when you read your report, we asked them to go through an analysis. We did some benchmarking of several facilities of a similar size that are, kind of statewide. And I think that the final sort of comparison and benchmarking was we would need to essentially double our staff numbers. So we have 2 full-time staff right now, 2 full-time, 2 part-time staff. So it'd be essentially doubling that to 4. And a lot of that also takes into, we need to also consider if we're expanding hours, like maybe this building, maybe it has more, maybe we can attract more folks that are younger folks that want to use it later. So we've got some programming hours to consider in that we have to stretch that time out as well. But yes, additional air conditioning and cooling and water as well.
Thank you.
So just quick reminder, pros of scenario A would be reusing the existing structure. It's the least costly option and it would take care of some needed upgrades. And it meets many of the current needs. However, the cons would be, it would have to be closed for construction, which is a huge concern. Programs would have to be relocated. It doesn't meet all the needs and it is site specific. It's also the least efficient use of the space because it just doesn't function as well as something that is ground up. And then scenario B, it's an efficient use of space. The existing facility could stay open during construction. It's in the median cost range. It meets most of the needs and it can be adapted to any site, but it does not meet all the needs and it could be outgrown in the soon years, shortly after construction, it could potentially be outgrown. So scenario C, pros would be, again, open, you could keep the existing facility open during construction. It meets all the identified needs at this time. It could be adapted to another site. It could be, or it is designed for future needs and it has the most adaptable spaces. Cons would be, it's the most costly option, of course, at the largest square footage. And again, there at the bottom are the cost projections. I'll turn it back over to Kimberly.
Any more questions for the architect? So I'm just gonna ask for any feedback. We don't have any next steps for this. Our next step would be design documents, but just interested in what y'all think of the study and if you have any feedback for us to move forward.
I like the idea of keeping it there at the site. So I think there's a lot of synergy. You've got the T.E. Harmon Center, the IPRC, and of course you've got the baseball field. So it's just sort of like our active recreation area. And some of the teachers and some of the participants there at T.E. Harmon, after their class, they will walk over and teach a class at IPRC, and some will walk over and take the class at IPRC. So that back and forth is really nice. And interestingly, within the past 2 weeks, I was approached by some people. I don't know who that big group of people, and but they were like, "We love the T.E. Harmon Center. Please don't do away with it. We don't want something that's new and modern looking. We like this because of its warm, traditional, comfortable, and inviting feel." And I talked to some further. Their thing was, T.E. Harmon feels like home. We just love the homey feel, and they're really afraid that a new place was going to be this modern, sleek. thing and it wasn't gonna feel like home to them. And the other thing was they really liked having, you know, just their own space, just for them. And of course, they don't want the tax rate to go up because of it, and they don't want their fees to go up because of it. But anyway, but I do want to say, we have tremendous staff and volunteers at the TE Harmon facility. They're really, really great. And the current facility, yeah, the HVAC system is definitely lacking and it's in dire need of remodeling. And in scenario A, having a closure for 12 to 18 months is really, that's very that's very, very concerning. But in scenario B, that's where it's sort of like a mid-size, but then we could take the extra money that over time and, have scenario B, but then you know, have a pool and then also have, you know, the pickleball courts and stuff like that. And for about the same total amount of money, then we could have all those different functions and stuff. And it's still, you know, over double the size what we have right now. That's my thoughts. Jim, you had.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make some comments. I went to the, I don't know what we called it, but the thing had at TE Harmon where we presented these to
the open house.
the residents. And kind of what the mayor was saying, right out of the bat, don't close my facility for 12 or 18 months. If we do that, I would be very concerned that some of those people would never come back. So we'd have a brand new facility that nobody's using. And it would do a huge disservice to our citizens. So for that reason, I would say scenario A is a non-starter. If we can't keep the current place open. I have talked with people there as well. And it's just, I mean, the people that go there love it. It's home to them. And as you guys were saying, some people hang out there all day long. It's their home, and it's really cool. So we need to do something for the senior citizens. And I would be, I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice to not build something that takes the future growth into consideration.
Stuart?
And I will say that only about 16% of our existing 65 and up are taking advantage of the senior center. So we can talk about how the 65 and up is going to grow, but also how are we, you know, if we build a new center, are we offering programs that attract more of our existing population to that center?
Stuart?
I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but I'd love to know the answer sometime in the future. Are there any creative financing methodologies available for this sort of thing, federal money, state money, or do we just have to go right to the bond market and sell bonds for this?
I don't know all of the answers to that, as you speculated. I do know there is a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant that I think is $1 million or $2 million for indoor recreation, where seniors are considered a disadvantaged population, where it could score higher in that grant, for instance, a certain.
Oh,
Follow up.
HGAC, aging.
Yeah, area agency on aging.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
You know, kind of that same thought process. There's so many ways to monetize this, especially on the larger scenario C, because all that space is just there. And I know seniors go to bed early because they start drinking early. Not me.
Wow, a little added commentary there, but keep going, Suzanne. So.
But you know, if we're shutting it down, what time do they normally close down?
6 on most weekdays.
So you've got, you know, the later times and when you can kind of shift and maybe make use of those spaces and weekends, I don't know that, you know, more than I do. But there's just a lot of opportunity for monetizing this that can help offset some of these costs, I'm thinking maybe. And especially if the existing senior center is empty, there's probably a way to monetize that too. And when you start talking about, like Sanjay said, you know, more staff, more this, but we would also expect more people. So the numbers are going to have to make sense for sure, but we're not talking about just expense. We're talking about more revenue. And we can look at those offsets. That would be interesting.
Absolutely. And the architect, I think, got tired of us talking about how adaptable the space needed to be.
Yes.
And if we wanted to open this up as a bar at night for South Coast, we brought that up, right? So
Is that what you were hitting at, Suzanne?
no, wait, this was our discussion.
No, but to follow up, may I? But to follow up, you know, there was a kitchen in there that had cooking classes before. So I would love to go to the senior center for cooking class. You know, we don't have that here anymore. So those kind of things would be great to have, and I would pay money, I don't know how much, because I don't cook, to go to a class there for those kind of things. So I didn't see a kitchen in there that would do that, but it used to be one there. So- But I'm just thinking, geez, is there one there?
Yes.
19.
So, yeah, 19.
You'd have to point it out, because I don't know what that looks like, but.
It'll be here.
Okay, so I mean, it would be really cool to have that even for non-seniors, and of course you know, like $60, $50, I don't know, to do those kind of things, but.
Absolutely, yeah, adaptability was a key theme in this, and we've even worked into, you know, where can we provide an additional entrance? If we're renting it, they're not gonna come in the front, where can they come in? And some of a lot of our discussions were based around that how can we allow for extra revenue to support this? And there are a lot of the existing senior centers, they do offer that. There is a senior center, and I won't mention which one, that will displace classes, senior classes, to provide a rental accommodation to assist in funding. So that would just be just a difference in how we're operating, but those things are all things that we take into consideration.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, scenario A is possibly out because you have to shut it down. My personal preference is more scenario B, because in B and C, both the current building is still there. So it could still be utilized. So that provides an additional space. And one of the options in scenario B could be that leave the current building where it is, but build the additional one somewhere else. So in future, you could have, if we decide to have 2 centers that can accommodate more people as well, because there's no need. The current building and the new building has to be at the same place. Of course, we need to look at the operational part of it to support 2 buildings at 2 different places.
And I don't know if y'all are certainly not old enough, but the building before it was the senior center in 2012, it was the community center, and it was just that, it was a huge rental facility before it was renovated to the.
So we should somehow make use of the existing thing as well afterwards. That's my feedback. And just one question.
Follow up.
Is the cost for pool and all are in these numbers, or they are addition to this?
They're in addition, so that would be those numbers.
So those numbers are in addition to this. Okay. So Mayor, one thought, where's the money going to come from? Is there any thoughts on that?
We thought you'd just write a check.
Yeah, that's, yeah, with something, talking about this kind of magnitude, $16 to $24 million, there'd have to be another bond election, or we'd have to wait until we have capacity. So we're talking about some really significant tax rate increases over the next few years, and because of the bond election that I've already had. So we might have to wait until, and depending on what we have to increase on the M&O side as well, we may need to wait until there's just capacity within our existing tax rate to order to move forward with this.
Is SL4B an option? There's putting some money from SL4B?
That's helpful. I don't know if we have capacity.
Let me just chime in real quick. Where the funding comes from is not something that we contracted with them on at all. We will, you're right on your recommendation of B versus C, but if we were able to get a $50 million grant, we would probably recommend C, so we're always looking at, could the corporations participate in some way? Are there grants out there? Obviously the potential for a future GEO bond. And even then, you may remember that the last GEO bond, we spent a year and a half prioritizing which roadways we were going to do and all this. So we would come back at that time to retalk scenarios, all this. This is more about making sure that when we do start having those conversations, we've done the planning work to have an informed decision for y'all. Right now, the options for funding is not something that we have.
I understand, and question was not to them, it was more internal.
Yeah.
Because we don't get chance to speak about these issues often.
Sure.
That's why I raised the question that, where the money would come from.
All of those things are on the table, and
The different, HGAC possibly, and then SL4B is for quality of life, if there's capacity and stuff too, but,
The amount of interaction you've had with the senior citizens, they've made clear what's important to them. I think what I hear is that all of these scenarios take some of that into consideration. Obviously, the bigger, the more expensive, because we all take more things into consideration. It's a fact of life. But it is a service that our senior citizens have come to expect, and in my opinion, they deserve. And so I think we need to think long and hard about how do we make this happen? It's well done. You've done your homework to make sure that the need is there. And so now it's how do we make that happen?
Sure.
And I'm not hearing anybody in support of scenario A. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll jump in here on this one.
Okay,
So,
Bob?
yeah, A is definitely, I agree with Jim, doesn't make sense. If it's the same price as building a whole new one, I mean, there's only a $1.2 million savings of tearing down half the building and rebuilding. This doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. One thing I was curious about is the operating expenses versus the revenue. Have we projected out what these larger buildings are gonna cost to operate and maintain versus, and then overall, what are we bringing in revenue today?
I don't have this.
Okay. And then jumping back to the fundamental question is, what are our requirements and what problem are we trying to solve? I know we talked about the class sizes and, whether it's a 30-person class and we had 3 or 5 extra people, that want to be in the class and it's over capacity. I'm not sure if that's the fundamental problem we're trying to solve. If the entire building capacity is 300 people or however much it is, and we want to put 500 people in the building at once, I'm not sure if that's the problem we're trying to solve. Both have different solutions, obviously. If it's the difference between 30 and 35 people in a classroom, jumping up to a 15 or $24 million building to solve that problem seems like an overshoot to the solution. So I just want to get a better understanding of what our fundamental problem is, requirement that we're trying to solve before we jump to the next, step.
Well, I explained a little bit. One question, there's, the way the registration works right now is that you sign up for a month of classes. And so you may be gonna miss 2 or 3 of the classes because you're gonna be, out of town on vacation, or you got your family coming in, or you may end up sick or some emergency happens. So, but anyway, so what happens is there's, 2 classes, at least 2 classes a week where they fill up with people. And sort of like, with some of the people we have, more people get free tickets than what actually show up. So that's sort of a similar thing there. So what happens then, the class gets full. And so then when people come, they have to be on a wait list. But normally the wait list clears and there's, room for everybody, in that situation.
So based on that, I mean, is there a problem or is there not a problem?
Well, the building is very.
Oversubscribing to the class. Is that a lot of times people are on the wait list and then they get into the class.
The wait list clears and they make the class, right? But the building, but the HVAC system is in bad shape and it's in dire, need of remodeling, and it is, it barely meets barely meets the needs. Felt like Kimberly's barely meets some of the needs.
So there are a variety of problems that we're solving through this solution. There are things so specific as the flooring in some of the centers for the specific dance classes. We have made the center so multi-purpose that it doesn't meet the needs of some of the specific classes. So it allows us to expand those uses. The rooms that we have in here are smaller than the capacity that we can allow for those classes. So the new scenarios allow for bigger rooms to accommodate more people. And then the addition of multiple classrooms will allow us to accommodate more programming throughout the day. Instead of the 2 or 3 classes that we can have at the time, we may be able to double or triple those. It's really increasing our programmability of the space in order to accommodate more people in a variety of classes and variety of ways.
I think from what I understood is,
Sanjay?
from what I understood is number of classes is possibly the main issue. Otherwise, there are never like more than 200 people at a given time in the center. Based on what we said, people come and go. So if the average total attendance is 200 per day, then at a given time, it's only 100 to 150, while there's a 350 capacity. So it's not the overall capacity, the class sizes.
Rick?
I like the ideas, and I definitely scenario A is not an option. But I think if we see the increase in numbers at the current place, and thinking about the future, thinking it's going to be close to Imperial, whatever happens there, right? And so it would make sense. I think you have a bigger vision here, and because I think if you build it, they'll come. I really do, and our population's getting older, and I'm one of them. But I think it makes sense to me.
Can the parking lot accommodate scenario C?
So it is low on parking. one thing we looked at was sharing the parking, you know, with the rest of the facility. There's the drop off area, so they could be dropped off out front. The other thing we've looked at, for senior centers is not as many are driving to the center. A lot are getting dropped off or picked up in shuttles. So the parking is, you know, more parking is better. But they're usually able to get by with a little bit less and still function well. We've also looked at the scenario if we were to demo the existing building and turn that into additional parking, then that should be enough to accommodate the building. To just back up on one thing that we were talking about a second ago, I just remembered a comment from the staff about the programming and the attendance. It was more about we could only have, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only one room could accommodate a lot of the classes that were the most popular, such as the dance class and the yoga class. So it's like kind of fighting for real estate and kind of playing gymnastics with the schedule to make that work. Whereas with these increased spaces, you could have both going on at the same time. You could have multiple going on throughout the day, so you would have more attendance. And so I think it would be more of the complaint was, I want to do this class more often, but it's only offered once a week. Well, it's only offered once a week because this is the only space it can be held in, and that's also the only space that can hold 5 other classes. For example, is that correct?
Other comments or questions?
Keep on, keep it on.
Okay, thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay, so what are sort of like the next steps then?
So next steps, we're gonna have to figure out a way to fund this thing. So we're gonna certainly talk to our grant folks, but we're gonna have to just we're gonna have to have further discussions. And as far as, like Brian said, bond election, and we take a year and a half to discuss that. I haven't heard of any discussion on when our next bond election is, but this is certainly something that I think that we would discuss during that time as a project potentially.
Can this be a standalone bond?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why, yeah, it could be.
You can sell naming rights.
I'm kidding.
Jackson Center.
Yeah.
$500.
Sanjay, to answer your question about class size, there's one class that's got about 45 people in there that's very popular. Then there's another class where they can open up the second room and they can accommodate probably 50 or 60 people in there at a time for the
And
yoga.
the new one or
No, currently right now, yeah, so you've got probably 45 to 60 people in the most popular classes there at one time. And just in that room,
It's,
let alone the rest of the space.
it's very popular and they are very protective of their site.
I was there at the open house session and.
Okay, so next item is for the cybersecurity and artificial intelligence awareness training. And that was going to be presented by Paula Kuchka, Director of People and Culture, and Steve Bundy, Director of IT Data and Security. Steve?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. State of Texas, there are 2 House bills that were passed, one in 2019, one in 2025, that mandates cybersecurity training for all city and state employees as well as elected officials. And then they added artificial intelligence as part of that training in 2025. And then this gets reported to the state by August 31st. And without this mandated training and without the certification, it can potentially hold up any kind of grant funding and things like that, both federal and state. So that's one of the reasons why this is important to knock out. With that said, we're going to watch a video. The first.
Oh, no.
It's the same one. Some of you all have seen it before. It's it's a little goofy, but it's somewhat entertaining. The AI one follows right after this. It's pretty dry. I may try to find some sections we can skip over, but we'll go ahead and get started. And then at the end, we'll have a very, very short quiz that Paula will conduct. And without further ado.
Right now, at this very moment, there are thousands of people trying to steal your money, your identity, and wreak havoc on your life. They want to get rich at your expense and their schemes never sleep. Do I have your attention? I hope so. My name is Ryan Burns, the cyber guy, and over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about cyber crimes, cybersecurity, and what you can do to prevent yourself and your organization from becoming a cyber victim. First up, oh no, Hacker Hank, everyone's favorite cyber criminal.
Ron, you know a few things about cyber crimes, but I've been thriving in those digital streets since the internet was just a little baby that Al Gore put to sleep with a little bottle at night. You need some real insider information.
Well, okay, Hank, thank you, sort of, for coming back. Back to where I was. What is cybersecurity and why does it matter? Let's answer the second question first. In 2021, cyber crimes cost Texans over $600 million. Just 1 year later, in 2022, Texas moved to number 2 in the nation for complaints, losing over $1 billion due to cyber-related crimes. That's billion with a B.
Yeah, my cronies and I have been doing strong work out there. And you know who our biggest target was? The public sector.
I know, meaning cities and organizations just like you.
Yep, taking it to the man.
Cyber crimes and cyber criminals aren't just fodder for fiction novels and movies. They are real. And with numbers like this, you can see the importance of awareness training. By going through trainings just like this one, it helps to reduce human errors that can lead to data loss or compromise. It helps employees to more readily identify threats and respond appropriately. It fosters a culture of information security within the organization, enables trained employees to avoid financial impacts from data breaches such as remediation costs and legal fees. And it helps build trust with our constituents by demonstrating a commitment to data protection. So back to the first question, what is cybersecurity?
I know a bit about that. How to hack, but also how to stop hackers just like me.
So please remind everyone why such a vile and notorious hacker like you would be willing to help us out.
Sure, Ryan. I've been hacking ever since I was a little boy. When I hacked the Pac-Man game at my local arcade to give myself the highest score. I've been hooked on hacking ever since, but when it comes to hacking cities, I've just gotten bored. I've been using the same old tricks for years, and I need a new challenge. I want cities to level it up. Plus, I have a lot of enemies in the biz, and they're all getting rich way too easily. So I'm sharing all my tried and true method in hopes cities will wise up and shut off the funnel that's funding my foes.
That's very generous.
Don't get used to it, Ryan. I want to fund my trips to the Bahamas, but stop all those 2-bit hackers from their beach vacations.
Okay, so let's talk about cybersecurity, which is the practice of protecting networks, devices, and data from unauthorized access. First, we're going to talk about the types of data in your organization so we know what we're protecting.
And stealing.
Not if we're doing things right. Second, we'll discuss the 4 pillars of cybersecurity.
The towers I love to talk.
Third, we'll discuss common cyber threats.
My personal playground.
But also best practices to avoid them.
Made me work for it, Ryan.
And finally, how to respond and report a crime if it does occur. You ready, Hank?
A good hacker's always ready, Ryan.
The first step for information security is knowing what types of information you have and what you're responsible to protect. There are 5 major levels of information. The least sensitive level is public information. It's typically general information about your city, number of employees, address.
Boring. Everybody knows this stuff. I can't really make money off of it, Ryan.
Right. It isn't sensitive and wouldn't hurt you if it was disclosed. So it requires very little protection. With each rising level, the data becomes more sensitive and requires more consideration and layers of protection. Proprietary information is information that gives you the competitive advantage that you don't want the world to know. Private information relates to employees or sensitive policies, great for HR to know, bad for hackers to steal. Confidential information is data that helps within the organization, but that you might not want competitors to find out. The highest is your sensitive data. This is the information that could truly harm your city or organization if disclosed, and therefore requires the highest integrity and the most limited access.
I can make money off every level above public. It sells on the dark web like candy. Or I can use it to ransom your organization and make you pay me to get it back. It's a blast.
So take an inventory of what information you have access to and what you're doing to protect it. Or better yet, what you should be doing.
I love data, and as they say, data is knowledge, and knowledge is power, and power is money in my pocket. Money I can spend when I go to Barbados every year. Now, I can hack this data at lots of levels, but there are four main pillars. Think of these as doorways into your organization. There's the machine level. These are your physical devices. Say you lose your phone or a laptop. I find it, boom. Or if you've got a hacker in your workplace and you leave your workstation unattended, boom, we got you again. I'll hack your machine in a number of ways. Weak passwords, obsolete antivirus software, unprotected flash devices, lack of controls when you're on a public network, or lack of administrator controls that would prevent me from tossing on a fun little malware program.
Next up, the data level. This is the data itself, stored on a hard drive or in the cloud. Most employees aren't aware of how much data they have or where it's all stored. But what happens when a hacker holds it for ransom? Or it gets completely wiped out? Is it backed up? Is it protected? Organizations put their data level at risk when employees aren't aware of the data created and the cost of losing it. Offsite backups aren't done or not done regularly. Employees don't believe their data is valuable enough for an attack, or data isn't encrypted to protect it from hackers.
You know, Ryan, I'm not above dumpster diving for old computers, just to see what data I can find on those tossed out hard drives.
Why does that not surprise me, Hank?
Next up is the network level. If I can hack your network, I can get to every connected computer and its data. No computer is an island these days, Ryan. We're all connected. This stuff is much easier to hack when there isn't a firewall or antivirus software. You aren't doing scans that search for my malware, meaning my evil software will have longer to do its thing. There are no offsite backups. That way I will know you'll pay me lots of cash to get your data back. Or there are no administrator controls on networks. And finally, my best friend, the internet level, connecting all the world's knowledge and computers and data. And if you're not careful, when and where you connect, boom, I'm gonna get you. You think you're just having a little latte and doing some work, but I'm still in a latte of your information while you're just sipping on your little coffee.
That's a good one, Hank.
Thanks, Ryan. I've worked on that one for a while.
Your internet level is at risk when your organization has no controls over when and where team members connect to the internet. Public Wi-Fi is used continuously with no regard for risks. Administrators do not limit access or control. Work devices are used away from the workplace repeatedly, or employees are simply unaware of the risks. Now, Hank, tell us how you and your friends actually hack in and commit these crimes.
Happily, Ryan. But don't call the other hackers my friends. I'm a lone wolf on the prowl for data. I want your information, or sometimes I just want to mess everything up and watch your world burn.
That's messed up, Hank.
Hackers gonna hack, brother. But hackers like me can hurt in a number of ways. We can steal your information, modify it, or I can just gain access and do whatever I want. My criminal mind loves all of these. After I have it, I can sell it for a profit. I can ransom your organization. Or I can do really mean things like make all of your direct deposit paychecks go into my bank account. Basic stuff, Ryan.
He's right. And he's a threat. So let's look at the definition. A threat is the potential targeting of a network or system in an attempt to damage, harm, or disrupt its capability to operate. This targeting can potentially impact the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your organization's data. All right, so who is a threat actor besides Hank here? Well, it's anyone who tries to exploit vulnerabilities in an organization's system or users. They want to profit, financial or otherwise, damage the victim or organization, either financially or reputationally, gather data to trade it or sell it, or, in his case, just evil curiosity. We don't often know why threat actors choose the crimes they do, but we have to be on the ready.
I can tell you why I do it, Ryan. You ever had a Mai Tai in Jamaica? I don't need any other reason than that.
So, Hank, what does a cyber attack look like?
As a cyber criminal, our attacks look differently. I'm not going to run up and shout, "Give me all your money." You might just say no, and actual human interaction makes me very nervous. So my attacks look more like an email, a text, a phone call, or even a fake invoice. I'm trying to get information from you, like credit card information, bank accounts, social security numbers, or maybe for you to let me log into your computer remotely. Sometimes it's just an itsy bitsy link I want you to click on, or an email attachment I want you to open.
So attacks can be emails, phone calls, texts, USB hard drives, Internet of Things devices, or even an old school letter.
Ryan, I've got fancy names for all my schemes, like phishing, when I'm seeing if I can get you to respond to an email with personal information. Phishing, voice phishing rather than using email. Spear phishing, it's a targeted phishing aimed at particular targets. And once the target has been compromised, I use credentials and permissions to explore the entire organization's network. Score, Welling, spear phishing for the big dogs in your organization. Social engineering, when I use a context or a story to engage you before scamming you. Malware, installing bad programs on your computer. Ransomware, installing bad programs that shut down your computer until you give me what I want, which is typically cash. And one of the newest forms of social engineering, quishing, also called QR code phishing. By creating fake QR codes, I can get users to activate links by simply scanning a QR code with their phone. I even post random QR codes throughout a conference, for example. Attendees believe they are scanning a legitimate code to get information, but are taken to a malicious website where I can steal all kinds of good stuff.
So we've got to always be on the lookout. Here are some things to help you spot a cybercrime before it happens. Strange email link or one with a mismatched or misleading URL, poor spelling or grammar, requests for personal information, an offer that just seems too good to be true, something that you didn't initiate, requests for money or payments, messages that include threats, or something that just doesn't look right. Just having a healthy skepticism will go a very long way. So you find yourself facing a threat. An email is coming to your inbox with a fishy attachment. What do? The most powerful key in your security system is a very simple one: delete. If it's truly important, that person will reach out another way. But if you need to respond, verify the details or situation with a trusted friend. Call someone, but don't call the number in the email. If a scammer is good, that will all be part of the ruse. It's best to call someone at your IT department.
You'd be amazed at what information I can get simply by asking. I love to make it seem like a high pressure, super time sensitive matter. Folks love to think they're helping me out of a jam, and they are helping me go to Jamaica.
Another good one, Nate. You should report everything internally according to your organization's policy. Contact all involved parties, such as contractors or vendors, and report all cybercrimes to law enforcement. Now, let's talk about training and best practices. As a city or organization, you need to make sure that everyone has the right tools, training, and empowerment to help. You need to safeguard against unauthorized access to all your systems and information. Make sure you have strong passwords and policies. Use multi-factor authentication, or MFA, to authenticate users. Sometimes called dual-factor authentication, it requires users to produce at least 2 items from the list of 3 possible factors. Something you know, like a password, passphrase, or login ID. Something you possess, like a token or smart ID card. And something that you are, like a fingerprint, retinal scan, or facial recognition. Limit access to work areas and digital data and systems to only the authorized personnel who need access. For someone to get in, they should be required to show identification, proving that they belong there. This can be done with a card swipe or token on any door entry system. Another option is to have manned access checkpoints. Electronically lock all devices when not in use. Patch your systems. And train everyone on your policies. Like making them watch this video. Right, Hank?
Oh, sorry, Ryan, I fell asleep. I was up all night trying to hack a city with great cybersecurity. I couldn't get in.
So this really does work. Let's talk about best practices for your data. How you store it and dispose of it is very important. Utilize the 3-2-1 method. 3 copies of your data, 2 different types of media, and at least 1 of those copies off-site. Encrypt your data when possible. Monitor and limit access to only employees who need it. When computers get replaced, make sure you erase or destroy everything possible. I'm talking about reformatting old computers and going full office space on anything else if needed. In this era of working remote, you also need guidance to team members who don't use a conventional office. Cyber threats are everywhere, and remote workers need to be even more aware of how to navigate this new world. Remote workers should always follow your organization's policies and procedures. Use only approved devices, no personal computers. Strictly use your organization's VPN everywhere, especially when using public Wi-Fi. And use your phone's hotspot before public Wi-Fi. Guard your screen when possible. When working from home, make sure your router and all the software is up to date with the latest security, and that you're always using a strong password on your personal network. Create a second Wi-Fi network just for work if possible. Lock your device while away, even at home, so family members don't accidentally throw you into a bad network situation. Never leave your computer unattended in public. Never use your work device to access personal accounts like bank accounts, social media, or online shopping. Something else to consider with cybersecurity is that not every threat relates directly to money being stolen from your city or organization. A newer threat that we are seeing a lot is through the use of AI or artificial intelligence.
New methods for stealing data? Tell me more, Ryan.
Yes, private data is the big thing at risk here, not to mention having your organization be subject to legal risks and much more. While AI does offer increased efficiency for repetitive tasks, designing reports or presentations, and even the ability to translate documents into other languages, stakeholders should learn the possible risks before using AI. Some potential risks include errors or inaccurate text or speech, plagiarism or copyright violations, privacy risks, including unintended data disclosure, legal or ethical risks, risk to organization if content is unreliable, inaccurate, or discriminatory, and they can create harmful misinformation. For these reasons, you should always follow your organization's policies and procedures. Use of AI can be logged and monitored and only used for approved work. You should always consult your department for a list of approved AI technologies. Never input non-public or confidential data into AI interfaces. Avoid ethical misconduct when using AI-generated material. And always follow policy on disclosure of AI-generated labels, disclaimers, or images.
This is great stuff, Ryan. This is going to keep me and my no talent cronies out of your data and your life.
All right, now with this training, it's time to take your cybersecurity assessment.
Just gonna skip ahead here a little.
Again, we'll explain how these tools are specifically used in public sector environments like ours. And finally, we want to clarify the professional expectations for every employee when interacting with these systems. This baseline ensures that we remain compliant with state standards while leveraging technology to better serve our communities. To introduce some of the AI technical fundamentals, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Ryan. You know, when we talk about artificial intelligence or AI, we are specifically referring to systems designed to perform tasks that would normally require human intelligence. But it's a common misconception that these systems think or reason like we do. In reality, most AI generates outputs by identifying patterns in massive amounts of data. And so it's important to remember that because AI relies on pattern recognition rather than true understanding, it does not comprehend intent, context, or ethical nuances. It calculates the most probable response based on its training data, which means it is a support tool meant to assist our expertise, not a replacement for human decision-making. As we look at the tools available, we generally see two main categories. The first is generative AI, tools such as ChatGPT, Copilot, Grok, Gemini, etc. These tools respond to user prompts to produce content like text, summaries, or images. Generative AI can also be used to produce software code. These tools are reactive to user prompts and do not take actions on their own. The second category is agentic AI. These are the systems that are more proactive. They can take actions or make decisions with limited human input. They might trigger workflows or interact with other systems to execute specific tasks. Because agentic AI operates with this level of autonomy, these use cases are inherently riskier than standard generative tools and usually require much more rigorous oversight and controls. As AI tools evolve, we see that some are becoming a combination of both generative and agentic AI functions. For example, some of the newer chatbots, they can discuss a topic using generative technologies, and once a decision or action has been reached, it can then enact an agent to perform that action, such as issue a refund or update a database. Regardless of the type of AI, you should always remember that some uses are riskier than others, and our safeguards must match that level of risk. But we are already seeing these tools being used in the public sector. Isn't that right, Ryan?
That's right, Mike. And as we move into practical application, it is vital to understand how these tools actually function in our own environments. AI identifies patterns in large amounts of data and generates outputs based on probability, not necessarily comprehension. As we mentioned earlier, it's important to remember that AI does not understand the meaning behind the data it processes. To make that real, think of AI as an advanced pattern matching engine. Furthermore, AI cannot apply human judgment or determine the correctness of its own work. It might sound authoritative, but it lacks the situational nuance that we as public servants bring to our roles. That also means AI cannot tell you when it's wrong. If it produces an incorrect date or draws the wrong conclusion, it won't flag that error on its own. In government work, where accuracy, accountability, and public trust matter, that limitation is critical. AI can assist your thinking, but responsibility for the final decision always remains with the employee. Because of this, AI is strictly a support tool designed to assist our expertise, not a replacement for it. Understanding these limits helps explain why AI is used only in specific ways in government. To understand where AI fits today, it helps to look at how it is already being used across the public sector. One common use is to summarize information. This may include summarizing meeting notes, long email threads, or combining multiple documents into a single, shorter overview for staff review. AI is also frequently used to draft routine content, such as first drafts of internal emails, standard letters, or recurring communications that follow a familiar format. Another common use is assisting with research and data analysis. For example, helping organize background information, identifying themes across documents, or highlighting key points for further review. AI is also used to support administrative and organizational tasks, such as organizing schedules, generating checklists, or helping staff prepare standard forms and templates. In practice, these tools are most often applied to routine, repetitive, or information-heavy tasks that would otherwise take significant staff time. These examples reflect how AI is being used today to support day-to-day government operations. With that context in mind, I'll turn it over to Mike to talk about authorized and appropriate use of AI tools.
So moving into the practical considerations, it's important to note that only employer-authorized AI tools are considered appropriate for government work. This means employees may only use AI systems that have been reviewed, approved, and configured by the organization. Personal accounts or consumer AI tools must not be used for government business, regardless of convenience or perceived usefulness. A critical security concern is data exposure. Using unapproved AI tools can result in sensitive or internal information being stored, processed, or retained outside of government control. In addition, any AI-generated output must be reviewed by a human before it is used. AI may assist with drafting or analysis, but it may never replace professional judgment or accountability. If a tool hasn't been explicitly vetted and approved by the organization, it should not be used with government information. Authorization is not optional, it's a required safeguard. Now that we've established that only vetted and approved AI tools may be used with the government information, it's important to understand why those restrictions are necessary. AI has inherent limitations, and its use may involve risk. These systems do not understand consequences or accountability, and they cannot evaluate the impact of their output. AI may also appear competent while it is still being inaccurate or outdated. It can generate responses that sound authoritative, even when the information is incomplete, incorrect, or no longer current. Another key limitation is that AI lacks human judgment and contextual awareness. It cannot interpret nuance, intent, or situational factors, and it cannot recognize when professional discretion is required. It's also important to recognize that some AI uses are riskier than others. As the potential impact of an outcome increases, whether it's legal, financial, or reputational, the consequences of AI limitations become more significant. Finally, AI use may include data gaps or bias. Because AI systems rely on training data, their outputs may reflect omissions, assumptions, or bias present in that data that was used to train the tool. These risks and limitations are the reason AI must be used carefully and deliberately in government environments. Given the risks and limitations we just discussed, the next step is understanding how those risks are mitigated in practice. First, mitigation measures should always match the level of risk involved. Lower risk uses require basic safeguards, while higher risk uses demand stronger controls. One foundational mitigation measure is the human review of AI outputs. AI may assist with drafting or analysis, but a person must always review the output before it is used. For higher risk uses, oversight and approval are required. As the potential impact of an AI-assisted task increases, so does the need for management review and formal authorization. Another key mitigation measure is to verify facts independently. AI output should never be treated as the primary source of the truth. Important details must be confirmed for accuracy. Also, if AI use begins to produce negative impacts, the protocol should be to immediately halt its use. An example might be when an AI tool omits an important exception to a list of requirements, or it references outdated rules or policies. In addition to mitigation measures, it's critical to understand that some uses of AI are prohibited by law. This includes practices such as the social scoring of individuals, where AI is used to rank or evaluate people in ways that affect rights, services, or opportunities. An example of this might include using AI to aggregate prior code violations or complaints into a single score that is used to then set inspection priorities or audits. It also includes identifying individuals using biometric data without consent, which is restricted under Texas and federal law. An example of this might be, in most governmental contexts, using AI facial recognition to identify employees or visitors who violated COVID health rules would be an improper use of biometric data. All AI use must comply with state and federal regulations, as well as any internal policies. To wrap up with our core principles and final takeaways, I'll hand the floor back to Ryan.
Thank you, Mike. As we move toward the conclusion, let's look at the pillars of responsible use. First, responsible use requires meaningful human oversight. AI may assist with tasks, but it should never operate independently or replace human responsibility for decisions or outcomes. Transparency is also essential. Employees should never conceal or misrepresent the use of AI when it has assisted in producing work or supporting a process. We also have a responsibility to ensure accuracy and fairness. AI outputs should be monitored over time for errors, unintended bias, or inconsistent results. Along with accuracy, protecting privacy and security is critical. One of the most important rules is this: never enter personal, confidential, or sensitive information into an AI tool unless it has been explicitly approved for that purpose. Always follow your organization's AI policies And remember that accountability ultimately rests with the organization and its employees, not the software provider.
We're gonna start with a quick quiz.
So y'all can just call the answers out. I'll read the question. Who is responsible for information and data security? D, correct. Let's go to the next one. Which of the following is a clue? Which of the following is a clue to recognizing a phishing email? D, correct. Y'all are whizzing through this. If you receive a phone call from a stranger asking for information about your invoice payment process, you should. D, don't answer. All right. True, false? There is no danger related to clicking on internet links or attachments because they pass through the firewall. False, correct. Okay, these get tricky. These are the new questions. Okay. What best describes artificial intelligence?
System that performs tasks normally requiring human.
Correct. B. All right. Who is ultimately accountable for decisions made with AI assistance?
C.
Correct. Y'all are on your way to 100%. Which of the following is an appropriate public sector use of AI? A. So always with the human review. That's it. 100. Y'all are amazing. Thank y'all so much. Your cybersecurity for this year is complete. We will see you next year.
Policy.
Yeah, yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Okay, very good. Next item is 5, adjournment. So having no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn? Sure. Thank you.
And do about minutes.
We call